Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. We approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Vote by roll call.
Councilor Caceres,
Aye.
Councilor Seha,
Aye.
Councilor Ecclestone,
Aye.
Councilor Lee,
Aye.
Councilor Sini,
Aye.
Councilor Witt.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Moving on to presentations, proclamations, and visitors. There's none. Public comment? Public comments?
Do you have the attendees located?
No attendees.
No attendees.
So no public comment. Move on to consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
Second.
Vote by roll call.
Councilor Caceres,
Aye.
Councilor Seha,
Aye.
Councilor Ecclestone,
Aye.
Councilor Lee,
Aye.
Councilor Sini,
Aye.
Councilor Witt.
Aye.
And that is unanimous.
Public hearing, there is none. No old business, no new business. Moving on to city administrator report.
All right, good evening, council, chair. I've presented with a written report and there's some additional details in there, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of items. And then I've got just a small report on the Corn Festival. So I think you've got that ready to go, right, Colleen? All right, so just a reminder that we are seeing a large increase in COVID positive cases. Oregon's averaging over 2,000 cases a day. Marion County's averaging 200 to 250 cases a day. These are the highest numbers that we've seen. So just a reminder to the community to deploy whatever measures you can to protect yourselves at whatever comfort level you have. I know we've re-implemented some of our continuity of operation policies at the city. Just so that what we don't want to do is have cases go through the city where we can't actually provide services. So, so we're continuing to do that. I did want to announce to the council that we did receive a $6,000 grant from Pacific Power Foundation to be used towards Mods Village project. As that project gets underway, we're still applying for grants because what our vision there is more than we funded. We funded kind of a base package, and we want to be able to do landscaping and maybe a area of seating and maybe finish the interior. So we continue to apply for grants. I also received words after this report was written that we actually received another grant. I can't announce the details of that yet because they want to do a press release. But we've been doing pretty good with our grants towards the village. And then really everything else is in the packet. It's just updates and light reading. And I'll go ahead and move to the Corn Festival presentation, if we can bring that up. So this presentation, just to touch on the presentation, it is a draft presentation, meaning we're still getting some bills in for things that we purchased, so we don't have exact numbers, but these are very close, so within the ballpark. So we can go to the next slide, Colleen.
Sure. I'm trying to figure out how to, oh, it is up there.
Okay.
Never mind.
So we did do a skate competition that was added, pretty late, but I think they did really well. I did send a thing to Cakes, an email asking for kind of a preliminary report on how they thought everything went. But I did go over for the competition, and there were quite a few participants that actually skated in the competition. It looked like he had a good amount of sponsorship. So I think that actually worked really well. It cost the city $500 so that we contributed to like the prize money and stuff like that. But honestly, that was That's really all it cost us. We didn't have to include a bunch of staff time. So we'll look for another opportunity like that next year. And it may even be cakes again, if they were happy with it. So we'll talk to them about that, but it was a good addition. Next slide. Our party in the park. Now remember, this is the first year we did this, and I actually thought it worked out pretty well. You know, we had to do a lot of rental. We can go on to the next slide. Rentals, but we had about 520 people in attendance for that. And I thought that was pretty good. We had 350 chairs and table seats rented. So, you know, it gives you an idea that a lot of people were standing around dancing or around the perimeters. Our total expenses for that event was $6,172. We were fortunate enough to get an event sponsor, which is critical for an event like this. Our beer proceeds were about $1,700. And then our entry fee and raffle, miscellaneous things that we did to raise money was about $2,800. So our total revenue was $9,580. And our revenue over expense is $3,400. So that was actually a pretty good fundraiser. It was a very easy event to put together and organized. Much of our stuff was rented. And so we only had to really set it up in place. If we wanted to go bigger, obviously the investment would be more, but it just gives you an idea what an event like that cost in dollars and cents, not staff time or volunteer time, but dollars and cents. And then what the return would be if you wanted to make a return, or you know, the expenses would cost, but $3,400. So really, it's critical that you get an event sponsor. Otherwise, these are, you know, they're just lost revenues or lost money coming out. So everybody was having a good time. I've got video of the effect, so. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Our parade, we did get an event sponsor for the parade, and we tried to market exclusive sponsors for some of these things because that makes you know, more people interested. Our parade expense is about $2,700, and our sponsorship was $3,000. So we did not lose anything on that. Typically, we'll get a few sponsors for the parade, but we usually end up paying for much of the parade out of city funds. So that worked out really well for us. Let's move on to the next slide. And then the Corn Festival. Now total, and you'll see at the end slide, we received $22,500 in sponsors across all the events. Some of them we gave exclusive sponsorships to parts of the festival, like Party in the Park or the parade, but the city looked at it as one event. But for the purposes of reporting, we've divided the Corn Festival day in the park separate. So we had $14,500 in sponsors for that day. Interesting, we took about $1,300 in counter donations. And this is just people walking up and saying, hey, we want to support the event, and throwing a few dollars in a bucket. And I was surprised. That shows a really, really large support base in the community for an event like this. Parking, about $1,700 or $1,800. Parking actually revenue was down. Attendance was down a little bit. Parking revenue should be about double that. Our raffle made $1,258. Again, these are things that are donated, so it doesn't really cost the city a lot to do a raffle. Corn sales about $5,000, and then vendor rentals, $4,150. Total revenues just under $28,000 for the event. And we can go to the next slide. And I didn't go through a detailed list of things, but your major expenses for an event like this is your corn, obviously, your materials, advertisement, rental of equipment, and then entertainment. We had free pony rides in the park for the kids. We had the free maze, and we had an entertainment company that came in and did a magic show, and then they did balloon animals throughout the day. And so those are all things that enhance the experience of an event like this. We were able to use our tiny village to kind of work on getting corn bagged the day before, and that really aided in the reduced number of man hours we needed for Saturday. So that actually worked out really well. Let's go on to the next slide. So our total expenses to put the Corn Festival Day itself on was around $10,000. And our total profits, this is over and above the expenditures, was about $17,000 or $18,000. So total to all events.
Is there a way to, sorry, is there a way to compare that to previous events? Do we have that?
Can you say that one more time?
Do we have the ability to compare that to previous events? I know that this is the first or second time.
We're having it with the math on it.
Is there a way to compare that to previous events?
Good question. So the question was, is there a way to compare that to previous events? We can make some comparison, but unfortunately, for us, there wasn't really a lot of resources. The resources that we have available to us were just what we interacted with the various Corn Festival boards over the years. So we kind of know, I might be able to look through some past events for revenue and expenses, but we really didn't have a lot of details. In a lot of cases, this was the city establishing a baseline, which is valuable information, and we'll be putting together an events manual. But the previous event binders talked about when to set certain things up, to remember to take volunteers water, when to put out signs, lots of details like that, but not a lot of details on how much butter do you need, that kind of stuff. And so how many bags do you buy? And so where we didn't have that available, we were creating a baseline this year for that. So we had about 80 plus volunteers, not counting city staff, to host the Saturday event. And just in volunteer hours, it was over 240 volunteer hours. We had 8 community service groups participate in volunteering for the event. And with staff time, it's over 1,000 hours of total time for actually putting that Saturday event together. So it's quite a bit. 23 event sponsors, $22,500 was our total. And our total revenue with all events was $41,000. And then the next slide, our total expenses with all events, about $21,000. So we profited a little over $20,000. Now that number will go up or down 1,000 or so, but you could tell that was actually a pretty successful event. When we started the year, council was prepared to spend, the $21,000 all on our own if we had to put the event on this year. So not that we want to do that consistently year after year, but we knew the community really needed something, and we wanted to put it on. So I think it was a really good year. There were some new things that we tried. We got new corn cookers, which we thought worked out really well. And we thought bagging the corn the day before worked out really well. There were a lot of lessons learned because, again, we were trying this stuff as it was going. So we certainly got an idea how to improve operations for next year, but also how to just make it more efficient. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out ways to reduce the required volunteer hours, because as you can see, that's been one of the struggles year after year, is volunteers kind of come and go. And people get burnt out year after year. And you can't really always rely on a hefty volunteer force. And then the work that volunteers do, they want it to be pleasant. And if it's not pleasant, then you end up burning out your volunteers faster. And that's been a lot of the critique that we've heard. So we're really looking at ways to make the work easier, to develop ways to process stuff faster. There's a couple of weak areas that we've identified from a processing standpoint that's really difficult work that we would like to work on improving next year. And then just things like the containers that we use. And, you know, we have these large, heavy trash cans that we purchased many years ago that's been what we use to put coal in and dump on the trailer. Well, the trash can weighs 50 or 60 pounds. And so that's a lot of energy being expended just to get rid of the shavings or the silt and things from the corn. So understandable that, you know, we've purchased those things in the past because they last, but now we're really thinking of things like, you know, the movements and lean operations and how do we get to point A to point B by expending less energy. And so we really focused on a lot of those things this year. We knew we wouldn't solve all the problems because it was our first year and we had to establish a baseline, but we also knew that we could make some improvements to reduce the amount of staff time needed. We know we need more than 80 volunteers because that's what we got today. We could have used another 20. So we know what that target number is now. And we really didn't know what that number was prior to the event. So all in all, I thought it was a really good event. Our feedback has been extremely positive so far across all the events. And our feedback from our vendors has been really positive. Now, of course, we've got a survey out that we put out, both to vendors and just the community in general. And one of the things we're asking is, you know, how can we improve the event? And, you know, there's different aspects of the event that people will give us their opinion on, and we can use that to do things like, what vendor do we select? Do we have more than one vendor doing a particular aspect of the event? How was our entertainment perceived? Do we continue with that type of entertainment or do we mix it up with something else? And so it's that type of feedback that's really valuable for us as we go forward. Now, you know, we're probably not going to upend the event for one or two comments, but if we see a trend of, you know, large numbers of people saying, hey, you know, we'd like to see X or we should do Y, then that's stuff that we'll really look at and we'll test in future years. But all in all, I don't know what the typical sponsorship would be, but I felt like we probably exceeded what typically would have been sponsored for the event. And I think our revenues are down a little bit from where they could be, but they're probably above what previous events have raised. So if you guys, I think, there we go. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors, which they're all listed here. Some sponsored money. Some were large sponsors. Sandy Elwood was one, Cascade Floors, Sandy Towing. They did nice large contributions, but a lot of people gave large contributions. So just about anybody that you see on that list gave fairly significant contributions. There are some people that did in-kind contributions, that things like the raffle prizes or door prizes, and that was all. You need all those things to do an event, so it's all welcome from us. And so we made sure that we put sponsors on our flyers. We tried to brand their logos on the flyers that we were out advertising and on our social media bulletins, and then banners at the park. And then anytime that we made an announcement, we also wanted to make sure that we recognized the sponsors, because really the key to putting on successful events in the future is your sponsors. And we want to make sure that they feel like they get a good value or a good return on their sponsorship. Not that they want to do it because they're part of the community oftentimes, but we also want to make sure they get a return from it as well. So So yeah, that's kind of it. Staff worked really hard getting stuff ready for the Corn Festival, and they, they worked their little bottoms off at the event, and we were all happy when Saturday night rolled around because I think we were all tired. But I think we put on a successful event. Certainly, there's some things that we've done in our after action meeting or discussed in our after action meeting that we could change up a little bit to improve systems. But otherwise, happy to answer any of your questions or take comments about the events if you have any.
I don't have any questions. I was out there the majority of the day, and the feedback that I got and the feedback we got afterwards was fairly positive across the board. Like you said, I'm really, really thankful to the staff and all our volunteers. I think we pulled off an amazing event, and there's a lot of work that goes into these things. And I'm just proud of everybody. So.
Yeah. And we had some volunteers that, we had people that had mobility issues or they had physical limitations, and they would work diligently. They didn't work, they weren't going to lift big piles, but they wanted to come and volunteer, and they processed corn or they bagged corn or they shucked corn. And right down to the high school kids that were running around like bees, doing a lot of the grunt work. And yeah, just all kinds of all age groups and walks of life in the community came to volunteer, and it was a good event, and we couldn't have done it without them. Yeah, it would have been real difficult.
Yeah, I want to say thanks to the staff and volunteers. I was down there with actually I saw Nico and Angie down there while I was at the Corn Fest, and also the concert the night before, and the experience and appreciation from the community and our circle of network of people. They were so thankful that we followed through and put something together for them, because they felt like we desperately needed just some kind of engagement with each other. And even though everything's kind of crazy right now, they're so happy that we put on the concert, and then we still had the Corn Fest and all the volunteers. I saw them running around, and there was heaps of stuff to do. And I'm just very thankful, and I appreciate all the hard work that went into putting basically a 2-day event together. And you guys did amazing, fantastic job.
Excellent. No, thank you. Thank you for that. And like I say, we look forward to next year. We've already got ideas on, other things that we can do. And I think it'll be a good year for us.
Great.
I wanted to mention, Ron, if possible, I'm not sure what the timeline would be, and I know we have, of course, always a full agenda of decisions that need to be made, but I'd like to, I'm not sure if maybe this would be something like for a November meeting or December meeting, or maybe waiting until January, having like just a kind of brainstorming session as far as like Corn Festival goes, and kind of just talk about just a little more in depth, just some things that work and some things that maybe need a little fine tuning, and maybe getting some feedback from the public regarding like, theme ideas and things like that, and just kind of publicizing it. I know we used to do that more with the committee years ago, and it kind of, helped kind of creatively, inkling, add some positive things, similar to kind of like how we opened up the Grand Marshal selection process. That was kind of something that in part came from, doing that sort of transparency when it comes to, planning for Corn Festival, and just maybe want to see it. We don't have to do a whole entire meeting, but maybe like half a meeting, or maybe, devote some time out of a regularly scheduled meeting to kind of do a little visioning for the Corn Festival event itself. I think would be awesome at some point.
Yeah, well, and I'll just elaborate on that for a minute. council member, we did do, so we have I will say it's monthly, but there are a couple of months where we don't have a meeting, but really monthly, we have what's called an events planning meeting, and it really covers any event that's going on in the city. And oftentimes we plan these events all year. So we're talking about, our January agenda will have Easter and, it'll have the summertime events and all the way through to Christmas, really. Now we'll work in more detail on events that are imminent, but we actually do that every month. And the general public's invited if they want to come. They're welcome to come to the event, and we'll take ideas. What we don't do is we just don't run with, somebody that shows up at the event and says, I think we ought to do X. We talk that through, and usually I make the final decision because sometimes we're balancing resources or time, or does it make sense within the context of the event? And it's not that it isn't a good idea, it's we have to put things into perspective. So I'm usually the ultimate say, unless, everybody says, oh yeah, and they all jump on board with an idea, we'll usually run with it. But for the most part, the public can participate in that. They can come participate, they can throw their ideas out, they can listen, they can ask questions. Generally, the people that are interested in it are people that have some role to play. Council members are always invited to it. So if you guys want to attend those, just let us know. And then we did a post Corn Festival meeting last month, right? Or this month? When did we do that?
It was in August.
It was in August, the end of August, right after the event, because there were some things that were fresh in everybody's mind. And then right now we have a survey that's out on our social media website. It's asking about their opinion, what events they attended, and then if they click that they attended an event, then it goes through more detail and it asks their opinion on certain things. And then it gives at the end of each question, it gives a spot for you just write a comment. And so I kind of think we're doing that, but we certainly can look at that more if council's interested in, if council has an idea, if they have a goal for an event, then that's the kind of information we really want to know. So we can make
Certainly.
sure
It's not really convenient for me to be able to take time, at least at this point in time. Probably in the future, I might have a little more flexibility to be able to attend those meetings that are kind of usually during the day. And I think just from a council perspective, it doesn't mean that we act on everything we talk about, but I think maybe doing a little bit of a brainstorming session, just, focused on Corn Fest, it doesn't have to be an entire council meeting, but maybe where we take some time to do that and kind of are able to incorporate that. Doesn't mean that we, for example, doesn't mean that we have a meeting in January and then everything we discuss has to be something that we do that next Corn Festival. It could be something that if it gets support from the council and it's something that's deemed feasible by the staff, we could, kind of put it in our docket for something that we can do in the future. I know, there were several people that mentioned that they would like to see the Princess program come back, and that'd be something I would like to help facilitate getting back this next year. Obviously, COVID was a huge difficulty with that, in addition to the other, issues that it's made challenging. But I think at some point just doing a little brainstorming session would be productive, and I think it would kind of help keep that positive trajectory that was implemented with this last event that you and the staff and volunteers did an amazing job of building upon. And that's kind of what I'd like to maybe at some maybe do.
Okay, we'll get that on an agenda for discussion sometime after the first of the year.
Otherwise though, I really can't say enough how appreciative I am of just the staff, the volunteer, just the collective, just vibes that I got from everybody and feedback that I got from everybody from the event was just amazing. And in the several years I've been involved in some form with this event, this was probably the easiest one that I've experienced, the least stressful one that I've experienced. And I just want to take the time to thank you, Ron, and thank you, staff, and thank volunteers, just everybody that helped make that happen. All of you were captains and kind of keeping everything flowing, everything going, and just there was never any sort of negative vibes that I got. Everybody communicated heavily, and just everything, for the most part, came together extremely well. So literally, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ron, and thank you for everyone's leadership in helping to make that happen, because it was awesome, and it was great to see smiles on people's faces and just feel that positive energy from that event. It was awesome.
Excellent.
Okay, moving on, we have the mayor and councilor reports. Does anyone have anything to report? Derek and I, the mayor and I, we both participated in the House congressional redistricting meetings. Our mayor gave a short statement, and I submitted a written statement on the possible effects that where Aumsville will get moved into could happen. That's about it. So, moving on to good of the order. Okay. Correspondence, we have none. We have no executive session. There isn't anything else. That's it.
Well, we did have a correspondence
did.
that I would just like to reference. I emailed it out to council because it came in late for the packet, but I'd like to make sure the clerk gets it in the official record from the school district.
Oh,
Thanking Cascade School District, thanking the council for submitting a letter of support for local choice for some of the issues that they've been facing. And I think you all got that letter. I think it was a very nice compliment from the school district.
yeah, I did see that in the email. I forgot about that. All right, if there's anything else, 7:34, we can adjourn the meeting.